Paul, would you ever consider playing for the Celtics again?
Yeah, why not? You know, maybe play for them, maybe work for them. You know, who knows what the future holds.
Celtics beat the Nets. They finally win a game, 91-84.
Hey, sure? Wait.
We're going to talk about Paul Pierce while Jimmy does research on that. This is the Garden Report on Celtics Blog and CLNS Radio. Evans Clinchie, Jimmy Toscano, Jared Weiss in the house with you. The Celtics beat the Nets 91-84. In return, Perdue. No, so Paul Pierce, we're just going to talk about Paul Pierce right now. So,
I said Paul Pierce 4 times. So.
Wasn't a very pretty game. Paul Pierce, just getting the SEO tags going. But after the game, he opened the door to a possible return to the Celtics. Something that obviously was possible this entire time. But now
anything is possible.
It's kind of anything is possible. And Evans Clinchie, Paul Pierce is open to returning. What is your take?
I mean, who wouldn't love that here in Boston? It'd be pretty cool. I don't know how logistically realistic it is. I mean, the Nets are paying him right now. The Nets can afford to pay him because their owner is a mad genius billionaire. And I don't know how it's going to work. I mean, maybe in 2015 we look at, you know, bringing him back on a minimum contract when he's 38. I don't know. I would love to see him back in Boston. Of course, who wouldn't? I just don't know how realistic it is given the current situations of the Nets and the Celtics and Pierce's contract. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, he was asked. He was asked if he could see himself coming. It wasn't like he just said, "Hey."
Right, and you're not going to say no when asked that question.
Exactly. I mean, he said what I think anybody in his position would say. We know he loves the Celtics organization. I mean, he's a lifer. I can definitely see him coming back to the team on, you know, obviously like a 1-year deal. I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if it would be veterans minimum, or maybe it would be, but it would obviously be low money. I don't see him coming back next season. I feel like that would be too soon. I don't know if he'd want to come back next season. The Celtics aren't going to be very good next season unless they make a huge trade and they become instant contenders. They get Kevin Love, and all of a sudden, yeah, maybe they get Paul Pierce back. If not, if it's like a 2-year thing, maybe he comes back and he plays a much reduced role in the team, sort of that veteran leadership, and they're guided some of the young guys that are on the team still. Obviously, he has good relationships with front office and everybody involved in the organization, owners. So yeah, I can see it, whether it's this offseason or next offseason or whenever, to be determined. But he also said he could see himself coming back in a coaching role or a front office role, whatever that may be. And I can definitely see that happening. I mean, if he wants to live out here, obviously he's fine living out here. He did it for a very long time. I think he can do it. I don't think he's going to be an assistant coach. I don't think that's really the lifestyle I was looking for. But something like, you know, the good thing about the Celtics is they always have, you know, their you know, throughout history, you know, those great players of our back.
JoJo White being
right, he's always around. Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff like that.
So he can do something like that, I think. He'll be around. Like, picture like Jason Varitek or Pedro Martinez with the Red Sox. I think he could do something like that.
Okay, as far as actually playing for the Celtics, could you guys accept the idea of maybe he signs a 1-year deal with the Nets, so he does 1 more year trying to win a title with them, then he does a swan song in 2015?
If Kevin Garnett's back, maybe. If Kevin Garnett says I'm retiring, I can't see Pierce coming back.
Which is very possible.
Right. What's the point? I mean, Pierce pretty much got Garnett to go there with him. That's why the whole thing happened. I don't see Pierce like struggling through another year in Brooklyn, especially if I don't see the Nets getting much better. All they're going to do is hopefully get healthier.
So he goes to the Clippers then?
I mean,
that's his most likely destination, probably.
Yeah, I mean, if Garnett retires this summer, like if the Nets get knocked out in the first round in 5 games, and Garnett's like, I'm going nowhere, I can't win, I might as well retire, and then Pierce is a free agent with no Garnett by his side, I don't see him come back to Boston this summer. I mean, it doesn't really fit with what the Celtics are doing. Like, the Celtics are going to build a team for next season around Rondo, Sullinger, probably Avery Bradley, and probably a top 5 draft pick. And that's their nucleus. And Paul Pierce, at this point in his career, he's still a guy that plays a lot of minutes, requires a lot of touches, a lot of shots. You know, giving 36, 37-year-old Paul Pierce that kind of responsibility in a young rebuilding team doesn't really jive with what you're doing. And I think that Pierce, you know, he's not at that point in his career where it's so late that he could just kind of sing a swan song and then leave.
Right.
Like, he's still very relevant, and he still needs to be a big part of what you're doing. Like, you look at the Nets right now, he's taking shots away from Joe Johnson and Darren Williams, and he's doing his thing. And the Celtics, at their stage of rebuilding, don't want that. So in 2014, Paul Pierce, I don't think so. 2015, maybe.
It
But
depends on the makeup of the team, really.
yeah, but I just don't see them having the right makeup to fit Paul Pierce into it. I mean, it doesn't. How would that work? I don't see it.
Yeah.
I disagree with you. I think Paul Pierce has the skill set and the maturity to be the kind of guy that can kind of sit back and maybe go into like a 3-and-D role, that kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that at the end of their career, like Grant Hill, although Shane Battier was always kind of that player, but a lot of swingmen and perimeter players kind of narrowed their focus to being just guys that either shoot the ball or play defense or a facilitator, stuff like that. I think he could fit into that role pretty nicely because he's an incredibly smart player. He's a very good shooter, except for tonight. Otherwise, he's been a really good shooter for the last 5 years or so. I mean, he could easily be a guy that's kind of just like play really good defense for 2 minutes at the end of a game, be a spread the floor shooter, be a ball mover and facilitator, run a little pick and roll. I think he could be successful being a 15-minute guy for the next 2 or 3 years.
Obviously, he could, but it would definitely just be weird seeing that, like him coming back and just like that's his role. I don't know.
I think he would just waste his skills. Like being a shot maker is his thing, and like he wouldn't really need that role in Boston. He'd probably be better off somewhere else where his team would be using his skills better. I don't know.
Well, but that's part of being a late 30s, mid to late 30s NBA player is that you kind of readjust your game and reestablish your identity as a supporting player, and every single player has to do that, and that's kind of the stage of his career now.
Yeah, but I don't think Paul Pierce is a 3-and-D guy. He's more than that. I mean, he's not a defensive specialist. He's a different kind of player. He's an offensive weapon that requires a lot of touches, and I don't know. I think once he's not that anymore, he's going to walk away.
Well, that's why he's better than having like Chris Johnson as your small forward. With all due respect to Chris Johnson, who's doing his role greatly,
he's fine, yeah.
That's why Paul Pierce is the guy you want. That's why like the Clippers got Danny Granger. They picked up what is like a 3-and-D guy, but he's way beyond that. He's a much more skilled type of player. All right, so let's come back for part 2. We'll talk about the game, talk about a big night for Rondo. Just another really good game for Rajon Rondo. Is starting to consistently score 20 points and consistently take over games. So part 2 of the Garden Report coming next up on your playlist. CLNS Radio Celtics blog. We'll be right back.
It's always emotional when you step into a gym. Spent your whole life playing in. The tribute last time made it so much more emotional and the cheers, but every time I come into this gym, it's because I'm always seeing friends and people who's been around all the years. It's always going to be emotional because you miss them, for knowing them so long. So not at the same level it was last time, but it's always going to be there. Yeah, I mean, me and Rondo share a special bond, so, we'll always be friends. We always have something in common with our championship, our kids, they still hang out together. They hung out for his birthday, actually.
Gotta like the match, don't you?
So, Rondo, I respect him and what he's doing moving forward with this franchise, and it'll always be that way.
Did it feel a little...